And that's it. We are officially live. Another episode of Shut Up and Invest. We got a special one today with J Money in the house. We got Deal Machine.
What's up, guys? Hey, good to be here.
We got
What's
Josh.
up, guys? Josh and Matt from Deal Machine, guys. Hey, good to meet you. Good to have you guys on here to talk some driving for dollars today.
A big topic is driving for dollars. I was with Matt last week and we did a demo. Josh wasn't with us there, but we brought him into the party today. Josh, quick question before we get into the nitty gritty and let Matt say what's up. How much do you hear out there that driving for dollars continues to get deals versus, let's say, some of the newer strategies that people are trying, and they're trying to text and they're trying to find that cold caller in the Philippines? I mean, the tried and true, it seems, in this industry still falls back to driving for dollars, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think in the end, what you get from driving for dollars that you don't get with other processes, there's two things really. One, you're finding opportunities that other people aren't going through that level of effort to come across. All the lists that you can purchase and do those other activities around are lists that every other investor is pulling. And so you more and more, I think everyone in the space feels it on a daily basis. Everything is competitive, and every single list, like if you're SMS marketing at this point, chances are you're one of a dozen texts that they're getting. so many texts these sellers are getting. And so, and especially if they came from like a generic, like pre-foreclosure list or something like that. And so driving for, I mean, what we hear constantly from our sellers, from rather our investors, our early stage investors are like, I need to get deals. I need to be super cost conscious, and I need to get my first few deals under my belt. Driving for dollars helps them do that because they can actually walk up to these houses, door knock if they want, aggregate their list, do direct mail and get lower acquisition costs because their budgets are low. And then the bigger investors coming to us and scaling are coming in and saying, hey, like, we're buying these deals, but 5 years ago we were buying them at $2,000 a pop, and now we're spending $6,000 a deal. And some of these deals don't have $6,000 in them. So we're losing money and going through all this time to not get a deal. And so they're coming to us saying, hey, we need to bring our acquisition costs down to a more manageable number, and going through driving for dollars process has helped them do that. And I would point out too, the last thing I say, there's SMS and cold calling can all work with driving for dollars. So you're just aggregating the list that's unique, and then you're putting them through the marketing process that we know yields results, but you're putting it through putting a list through the process that's going to outperform your other list that you might be pulling.
Yeah. I agree with that point, definitely, because I uploaded 5 houses today from a market. I'm virtual, right? So I have guys in different markets driving for me every day. You know, you just get that list right there. It's a fresher list. You upload it, you put it in your driving for dollar workflow, and it goes and you hit them up right away. You get a higher, response rate and a higher conversion rate with those driving for dollar leads than you do with your average, text or cold call or direct mail postcard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Matt, what's going on, my friend?
Yeah, thanks again for having me on. Yeah, I just to echo Josh's statement too. I mean, like he said, regardless of how you're getting in touch with people, whether it be cold call, text, direct mail, door knocking, anything, building that original list is going to stand out from the competition no matter what. So that's really what we're trying to preach to people, is saying like, hey, driving for dollars is the method to build that initial list. So, again, Kevin, thanks again for having me on, and happy to be here today.
No, it's our pleasure. For the people out there that are just starting to think about getting into the real estate game, and they may not understand exactly the concept for driving for dollars, why don't we give them the layman terms explanation, the strategy, and then from there we can start going into some more high level stuff.
Cool. Matt, you want to do that? You want me to do that?
Go ahead, Josh. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So layman terms, driving for dollars. The goal is driving the areas of your market that yourself, or if you're wholesaling, your buyers are interested in having properties within, and finding properties that are physically distressed. So physically, something about this property is showcasing that the owner of it isn't maintaining it. Maybe that's an owner-occupied property and they're aging out of it and they can't maintain it. Maybe they own it and they don't have the financial means to maintain it. Maybe it's an absentee owner that hasn't laid eyes on the property for 20 years and they've had renters in it and they don't realize the condition of the property that they're in. And so we're looking for that distress. So that indicator that doesn't show up on other lists that this property isn't cared for, being taken care of, and doesn't have the resources available to take care of it, that they could then sell it on a traditional fashion. So we're looking for the unique motivator of physical distress to tell us and indicate to us this is an opportunity that a seller might be willing and able to sell the property at a discount to us. And so that's what's driving for dollars. Let's go hunt down these distressed properties that are unique indicators. There might be a really good opportunity here that other people aren't able to get just by purchasing a list and more book oriented. Gosh.
Yeah. What I love about it too is that it's something that if you're listening to this podcast, if you're maybe consuming your guys' content, like Kevin, Jory, like a variety of things that you're taking in and educating yourself on, and when it comes to real estate investing, if you're doing that, driving for dollars is one of those simple actions you can take where it's like, hey, you got to start somewhere, you got to get out there, you got to start looking for deals. And driving for dollars, you can physically get in your car, drive around the neighborhood, and like Josh said, look for those distressed properties and take action on what you're learning and start to make conversations happen, and that can snowball from there.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's the beginning of it, right? I mean, it's like the ground floor, because when you get into real estate, right, the first thing you need to do is make sure you know your market, know your area, right? And so the best way is, for example, I take my kids to school in the morning. I would just drive for dollars on that route every day, right? You start to see different things in the area. Oh, there's more houses for sale over here, a lot of construction over here. It's just the basis of what you should do to have a good foundation to get into investing, and start off with just driving your area.
That's a really great point. I mean, I didn't even address it all too. Is like when you're just starting out, like you need to understand your market so much, and driving just gives you so much opportunity. When I started investing a little bit, I moved to Raleigh 5 years ago. I'd been here a couple of years. Within a month of me doing this, I knew 25 times more about random neighborhoods that I would never, ever have been in had I not been doing this very specifically and strategically for that. And so that's a really good thing to point out there.
The cool thing about you guys is that you're not just a tech company. You guys are also investors yourself. So you're taking your own tools and you're actually implementing it, so you can firsthand be able to say, hey, this works. This is the way I use it. I stepped into a new market. This is how I use it. When I go on vacation, I see a property, I still use the app, and you can do a deal. Like, you guys are just not this Silicon Valley company that are just pumping out features and really have no idea about the business.
Right. It's definitely, I think, a core tenet of us, even in our onboarding process with new employees. For people who aren't in it, like we try to encourage our employees to go through that process of becoming investors themselves. David has a rental portfolio in Indianapolis. I've got rentals. And so it's definitely, I do think that's an important element for us, is being able to create the tools that are necessary based off what we see and what we see ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, I even think from the origin of it too, like David was scratching his own itch there. He was getting out there, driving, writing down addresses, trying to figure out like, how do I get in touch with people? And we created technology to help do that and scale it and automate it and make it much more effective.
Let's play devil's advocate a little bit, because there are probably people out there that right now they may be doing driving for dollars, and their strategy is pretty much, hey, let me take a picture of it on my phone. Let me write the address down on my little handy dandy booklet. And then I'm, gonna get around to figuring out how to get in touch with the people. Maybe I'll get off my car and I'll try to door knock. But if they don't answer in that moment, I'll go back home and like maybe put it on an Excel spreadsheet. That is a method, right? That's a strategy. That's kind of the old school way of doing things. That's kind of also, in my opinion, a little bit limiting. Like, you can only do so much of that. And if you're really trying to do more than one deal here and there, and if you really want to do this business and actually close multiple deals, it's tough doing it the old school way.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's scaling past one deal a month, much less 2 or 3 deals a month, without the technology to help you with that is extremely, extremely difficult. David and I, we gave a presentation on that, like essentially a year and a half, 2 years ago, where we were like, here's what the old fashioned way looked like. And we used actual time from when David was doing this himself in Indianapolis. And it was roughly like 25 minutes of property in total of managing it, from finding a property to finding the ownership information, getting an Excel spreadsheet, getting a mailer sent off, and skip trace, all of that. It was roughly 25 minutes of property. And with Deal Machine, it was like 7 seconds to do that. And so the goal of the presentation was like, figure out how much time are you saving by this. And so for 28 minutes or 7 seconds, that was what Deal Machine allowed people to get that time back in their agenda. And so we're able to execute that much faster, build the list faster, whether you're using our direct mail, whether you're skip tracing and cold calling. Still the process of adding the property, organizing it, getting all the ownership data instantly, being able to record a note and tag the property, and then having the list ready to skip trace if you wanted to skip trace and call them. All those things are significantly improved upon with Deal Machine. And again, that old process can work, but even our basic $49 plan lets you do 500 properties a month through that process. That's significantly faster.
Right.
Yeah.
That's at the end of the day, the return on investment you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well,
I'm a CrossFit guy. I like the fact that when I go to the gym, I don't kind of dibble and dabble. I like a program. I like what my workout is going to be already written out for me. I follow it. I don't have to think about it. I get in, I do what I got to do. I get out, and within 30 to 45 minutes, I have a workout that I've on my own would have never done. I kind of feel like you guys, especially for the beginner investor, and even experienced people, you guys kind of have a roadmap where you guys say, hey, upload X amount of properties, do this, do that, and you kind of give somebody those first few steps to really jump in. Am I not correct?
Yeah, I think you're, so that was actually a couple mentors early on in the process for us as we were just growing Deal Machine. We're like, what you guys deliver is time savings, technology is cool and all that, but people early on, like, they don't need like this theoretical, like, here's how you do X, Y, Z. Like, they need to be told, go do this. And so, and like, not that we won't explain it to you, but like, really, like, don't bother questioning it, because you're going to waste time trying to understand something that you don't have to fully understand. Like, you just need to know, go do X, Y, and Z, and repeat that. And so that's been kind of a core tenet of how we've designed the software and tried to design our onboarding processes and the YouTube content we create is just go do this. And so I agree. I think it helps people speed the process up to where someone like wants to do this today, like within 30 minutes, they could be out in the street doing it. Like within 10 minutes, they could be out there doing it right now and adding to the process without having to make it too complicated on themselves.
Yeah. I will say too, I mean, Josh, the fact, like, I know you brought up like, hey, we save people a lot of time for just getting that first postcard out there, or getting that first, the 28 minutes down to 7 seconds out there. And Kevin, you talked about like going to the gym. Where we see people fail a lot of times too is, if you're not using technology to aid this, like, you can get that first postcard out the door. You can get that first touch point, that first cold call, whatever it might be. But the consistency and the follow through, much like going to the gym, it takes doing that every day, and it takes doing this follow up, and it takes, using technology. Like, that's how we build Deal Machine, is to really help you put together campaigns to automate that and to scale that and to consistently get content, get postcards out there. So that way you're getting that content on top of their mind. And maybe that first postcard is at the right time and they actually want to buy. That's great. Maybe you got lucky there, but a lot of times you'll have to make that first impression and then consistently stay top of mind with these postcards. So that way, when it does come time, or when they do have that need, and they're actually open to having the conversation, that you're the postcard that's on top, and you are the one that's been on top of their mind the entire process.
Yeah, that's such a huge key, because I'm a heavy direct mail guy, and people don't realize you have to keep mailing direct mail postcards, right? It's not like, oh, I mailed 2 cards and they didn't call back. I mean, we get calls from cards that have been on somebody's desk for over a year, right? And they might have 8 of our cards there, right? So that automation factor is a huge factor with the Deal Machine app. One thing I wanted to kind of talk about before we even went to more of the key features, because I know you guys have a lot of features in the program, is like, a lot of people are like, what do I even do when I drive for dollars? What am I looking for? Like, a lot of people just don't know. Like, we know because we do it all the time, but what are some tips of like the actual house, what to look for that's a good driving for dollars lead?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, the generalist is distress, but like you said, what does distress actually mean? And so just some really like off the cuff examples, boarded up windows and maybe a broken window, tarp on the roof, or just a roof that's clearly 30, 40 years old that hasn't been updated, gutters falling off, longer grass, not like I didn't mow it in the last 2 weeks, but like I probably haven't looked at my landscaping in like months, type of thing. For me, some of the unique stuff, like actually the first flip I got with Deal Machine was here in Raleigh. And it was like January 25th that I was driving. And there was Halloween decorations up. And so I was like, this is just like something's odd, something's out of place there. Maybe they're still living there, but they're not. Something's weird. They've gone through 2 other major holidays and haven't changed their decorations. And so that I think is kind of a unique one that like, I think in a generalist sense, I use to say like, look for things that are out of place. If someone normally cared about the presentation of the property, wouldn't be the case. And so that's kind of like the approach that I take for qualifying a property visually, to say, hey, like there might be an opportunity here that I might want to take advantage of.
Yeah, the Halloween one is funny because like I lived in Michigan, right? And so if you see a driveway that hasn't been shoveled of snow, and, it's just a pound coming up, right? That house is probably vacant. Also, I always tell people, drive for dollars on garbage days. And if the house is run down, there's no garbage can out front, it's probably a vacant house, right? That's a good tip that I've always done. I go early in the morning on garbage days to see what houses don't have any garbage cans out there. Also, always look for like any kind of postings on the house too. Any kind of notices or letters is a good lead too.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously the other thing, you get like for sale by owners, like some people do for sale by owner and all they do is throw a sign in the front yard and they do nothing else. And so you'll come across opportunities like that other people won't.
Sometimes I think the ones that people don't expect too, like if you see construction going on, you might assume that person has money and that they're going to improve the property and that there's no chance there's a deal there. But sometimes that construction sits there for a very long time. And what that actually means is people are running out of money, or the city busts them. And now they weren't planning to have to go through all the legalities that the city requests. And now we're trying to get away with X, Y, Z, and now they can't. And now they're stuck. And those tend to be really good deals too.
That's a really good point. Yeah. Stale construction sites, like a construction site that looks like it's been inactive when like construction sites should be super active because they're trying to move quick. That's a really good tip that I hadn't thought
of. Matt and Jordan, as far as walk us through what you guys are seeing, the people that are having the most success driving for dollars and using your technology. Is there a certain number of houses you're seeing? Is there a certain number of touches that they're marketing? How exactly are they approaching the strategy with the tools you give them?
Sure. Mm-hmm. So I'd lead with a couple things. One, like the number of like deals per lead ratio is going to vary so much market to market. So I think that's one important thing to clarify. Like someone in LA is going to have different results than someone in St. Louis. Right. Their deal sizes typically are far bigger and they compensate for that. But that's something that's relevant that I think we try to make sure we set that expectation. I think in terms of marketing touch points, you should be doing it if it's direct mail exclusively, like a minimum, absolute minimum of 3. Ideally, like it's like a 6 to 12 step campaign that you can break up over like a 12 to 24 month period. And our campaign system lets you automate all that. So it's still just a matter of adding the property and hitting start once and not thinking about it until they call you again, or if that marketing runs out and then it just stops. So the number of properties that they should be adding, if they're in Midwestern, that 250 to 350 range of distressed property per deal ratio with that proper marketing cycle put in place is very doable. I think if you add SMS and cold calling on top of that, you can actually close at a higher ratio than that as well. So those are and then if you're on coasts in more competitive areas, like for me, honestly, that deal I got in Raleigh, like that was like the 130th property I added, like pretty good. It was a really good deal too. Where I am in Raleigh now, if I'm driving in downtown, like inside the belt line of Raleigh, like I would expect to probably be in like the 600 property range per deal ratio to get a deal routinely out of it. And then those numbers up to like 1,000 or so if you're on certain coastal cities and stuff like that. But again, I think that especially the direct mail front, that repetitive marketing over time, as you mentioned already, is really, really key.
Yeah. And I know our most successful users too, like, they're getting out there, like Josh said, they're consistently adding those deals, looking for the right signs to know it's a qualified lead, adding that and doing that, themselves. And then as they look to scale, they look to hire out a driving team and help people, do that with them. So that way they can get to that 600 number, or the 300 number, or whatever that success ratio might be for them, more consistently and quickly. And, hire people that could be anything from, current Uber and Lyft drivers, or even if you post it on your face, if you posted a little bit of info about it on your Facebook, you'd be surprised how many people are open to doing a side gig like that. Hiring people to drive for you is kind of the way that people are scaling that, and our most successful users are using the app too.
Yeah, and as you guys know, once you get to the point you're doing a few deals a month, like you don't have time to go driving anymore. Like you're actively as a priority, you should always be focusing your best time on the bottom of the funnel. So if you got opportunities on the table, like that's where you need to spend your time. But as we've all known, I'm sure at some level of business, if you forget to fill the top of the funnel routinely, stuff falls off real quick, and all of a sudden you have an empty pipeline and too much time on your hands. And so the best users are really getting to the point they're focusing on their live pipeline and deals that are in today. And then they're, like Matt said, they're hiring out, they're recruiting a driver team to go driving to continually feed the pipeline of driving for dollars opportunities. And we've got some really cool tools around that process, like a driver recruitment funnel, training content. So you're not actually having to show them what to do. Like we do all that for you. And so that's definitely some of our bigger users are leveraging that. Highly recommend getting a couple of those on an hourly basis early on. A lot of people try to do like cost per lead or pay when a deal comes in that someone sent in. Those can work. The biggest downside you're just going to see there is people fall off a lot. And so you'll spend a lot of time recruiting people to get a very few amount of performers. And so the consistency of an hourly role and predictable time put into that is really, really valuable to really scaling Deal Machine. Like our people who are doing 30, 40 plus deals a year through Deal Machine, typically they've got 1 to 2 drivers almost on the full-time level, or they have like 10 people that are doing like 10 hours a week type situation where they're committed to the process. So they know before they start a month, I've got 50 hours of drive time that I'm going to get this month. So I'm going to get that many more leads. And I know my pipeline's taken care of in like the 3 to 6 month time frame because I'm doing it now and I'm investing it now.
I love it. I love it. We actually partied with the Polites last year, right before this year's pandemic hit and put us on timeout. And we know that they're big advocates of this strategy. And I kind of want to go deeper because this is like next level, where when you start really actually building a business behind a driving for dollars strategy, let's kind of break down what it looks like to actually have drivers on your team. What, where do I get them from? Who are the right type of people? How does that actually look like? How do I logistically manage that? How do I know they're not going to be just taking pictures of any house and putting it in there? Like, let's go a little deeper in that, because I think that's where someone can really listen to what we're talking about today, get the technology you guys provide, get a couple of drivers, and really hit those 500 to 1,000 properties in literally no time. Yeah,
absolutely. And I mean, more than that, especially if they go over, our enterprise plan lets up to 10,000 a month. So definitely agree. And so I think diving into that in particular, we had this, it's like literally a 52-minute video that we published like a month ago that David showed the process of putting an ad out there, getting drivers signed up, getting drivers out there driving, giving them feedback on the properties that were good, and then having high performing drivers from there on out. So one, I would recommend checking out that video, and we can get you guys the link because it is a really, really good video that I can't get into the level of detail and obviously on this conversation.
Yeah, send it to me and we'll put it in the description of this YouTube video.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll make sure to do that. Actually, I have it on my screen here. So the biggest thing, again, like Matt mentioned, are Uber, Lyft drivers, people who are already used to spending their time on the roads, but maybe don't want the inconsistency of waiting for a drive to come in or having to deal with people in their car. Like if they're already used to that, like they're a really good potential candidate for somebody who could be a driver for you. I also think something you do want to weed out in the process is people who are going to be technologically savvy. I don't think the app is that complicated, but you're going to have some people that will make it complicated. And so you do want to make sure that that's kind of a layer there. There's a level of comfort with technology. Where to find those people, in my experience, Craigslist and Indeed are going to give you the most consistent results of finding people that are wanting and ready to do this. And again, I'll give you the big caveat: finding and having an hourly pay structure makes a really big difference. By having hourly, you're going to get people who are expecting to consistently exchange their time for that money and be out there routinely, as opposed to someone who, if you just recruit your relative on Facebook, they might send you 5 properties once. You can't scale a business around that. And maybe you get really lucky and snag a deal out of it. But in reality, like, you're not predictably scaling business by 100 people sending you 5 properties. And so that hourly structure lets you go the traditional route of saying, hey, like, let's throw something up on Indeed, collect applicants. The biggest part of the process, like, don't waste your time before an applicant is shown that they're worth your time. One of the really cool things I mentioned earlier, we do have that landing page that lets people sign up to your team as a deal finder, create an account, start driving, get trained by us, start driving, and add in properties with photos of the properties so that you can verify the entirety. So you can get someone who's going to prove to you that they're going to be technologically savvy enough to do this. They're going to take the initiative to do it. They're going to track their routes. They're going to add the properties that fit the profile. So if you build this workflow to do once, you don't do anything until a driver's through that whole process. They've proven that they're going to do all these things. And then you have an interview with them and say, hey, here's what this looks like moving forward. Are you interested? And so having some automated filters to get people through the process without you having to spend a lot of your personal time on it is really, really a valuable part of that process.
Sorry, Josh, go ahead.
No, the final thing I was gonna say, I have seen some people, if you're actively coaching and mentoring, which isn't as much for beginners, but if you're actively coaching and mentoring people, I do think the one way those back-end payment structures can work is if you're recruiting people who are in the mindset of becoming your acquisitions person, becoming a full-time wholesaler themselves, and they're viewing this as their education process. That can work, but you do need to be like a mentor. You need to be a coach, and that's a layer of what you're doing for them as a part of the process. So I've seen that work a lot. So I like to give that caveat because, again, the people who are just trying to be simple, just go hourly for the predictability. But if you do have access to people who are taking it more serious, I think you can explore more like a JV or a like payout as the deal comes in, opportunity instead.
And with the hourly option that you're saying, right? So kind of give a breakdown of how that would be. Because let's say I have someone who's supposed to go 5 hours, 5 hours a week. Is there features that can kind of track that they're actually driving around looking for houses, or can you just, move in their car and sit there and say, oh, I found, 3 or 4 houses a day during my hour?
Yeah, great question. So we've got route tracking in the application. We'll show you the exact route that they've taken, how many miles they drove on it, how long that route took them to drive, what properties they added along the way, the date that they did it. It'll show you all that in a snapshot on one screen of every single route that they've taken. And so, if they're saying, hey, I drove for an hour, but I moved 2 miles, you can look at the route and call them out and say, hey, this doesn't make sense that you said you did this. You can see, it's not live, so you can't see it in the moment, but when you reflect back on the route, you can actually see the route that they've taken exactly and logically make sure that they've added the right volume of properties for the time driven. They drove the right distance for the time driven as well. One important element of going hourly is you do have to have a quota for them. You can't just, like you said, you can't. I think the root of this question is like, I want to make sure they're performing. Exactly. And so setting a quota of number of properties per hour is important. The 2 variables that are important there, are they taking photos of every property or are they not? So you can choose different routes. Like if you want to use our mailers and send our direct mail with postcard or with pictures on them, you want them taking photos. Some people who go the SMS cold call route, the photos aren't as important. You're able to move faster and add more properties per hour if they're not taking photos. So if you're on the no photo route, I would say you can get to the point you're getting 35 to 40 properties per hour, potentially pretty consistently. I've added as many as 73 in an hour of drive time without taking photos. That I think is a little bit excessive, but doable. if you're having them take photos of each property to use on your direct mail, 15 to 20, maybe up to 25 occasionally is about the range that you should expect to be in for the properties and for their own quota purposes.
Yeah. And just to reinforce what Josh was mentioning there too, whenever they do add a property, like, you can give them through the app restricted access there too. So that way, they're not sending any mailers or spending any extra, deal machine credits that you already have uploaded into there without your approval. So that's kind of a little bit of quality control behind it too.
Yeah. And I think over time so as a follow up to that video I mentioned earlier, David's actually recording like us managing this driver team, giving feedback on here are the properties that you should have added, here are the ones that you shouldn't. So I'll see what I can aggregate on all of those to give to you guys. But there is a little bit of like feedback loop process to tell them and coach them as you want them to get better. He does I think a 30-minute meeting every Friday with all of the drivers and goes over red flags, good flags, things like that. Has like a whole spreadsheet to help them be a little bit competitive in the process as well.
Awesome.
I love that feature. And the fact that there's route tracking, that essentially means you're not basically tripping over your own feet. So you're having three guys drive the same neighborhood, and then you're paying them, if you are saying $5 per hour, because this is one point that I wanted to, as you're mentioning this, you can pay these people 1099 and come to an agreement, because technically as a 1099, I'm not telling you the hours you have to work. I'm just telling you, hey, I'll give you $5 an hour and I'll give you a bonus if we close the property. Let's just talk about a potential, offer that you can make. And it's up to you, but you got to at least hit 10 hours a week. Let's just say I'll pay you X amount. And you got to be able to get these many properties within 10 hours. If you hit those milestones at whatever time, as long as I get clear pictures and clear data with qualified properties, I'll pay you X amount. Yeah. Now you're paying payroll W-2 taxes, which I know is a concern of people bringing on hourly type agreements. You're still within the independent contractor guidelines, so you're still doing everything by the book. But like I said, you're hitting the numbers you need to be able to scale and do 2 to 3 properties a month or more.
Right. Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up, because those are definitely relevant things when you talk about the employment structure for drivers. And you even brought up, you can't technically say, hey, your shift is 1 to 4 p.m. today. That is a W-2 employee by legal definition. So you, like you said, you have to phrase it in I pay X per hour of drive time. It's tracked here. Do whenever you want. Here's the qualifications. We do have a driver contract we give to our enterprise level members as well, that allows them to just not worry about that. It's got the template, it's got the legal disclosures for all of that included. Some other things I'd note too is you hire drivers, they're 1099, all their mileage is write-offs. We track their mileage, they can export the data, and so they've got proof at tax season, which is really, it's like a 20-25% of their money that they're probably paid on an hourly basis they can write off to taxes on their taxes. So it's a non-negligible shift in the economics of the job for them that I would make sure to point out.
Awesome.
Uber and Lyft drivers are good. You had mentioned. Have you guys seen success with FedEx and Post Office and UPS? What's those guys are always driving, but I'm not sure how they feel about a little extra cash in their pocket.
Yeah, I definitely, the way I would look at that. Definitely, if you see any of them, tell them, hey, you can be a bird dog on my team. Here's the app. Make it quick. Send me the property if you see it. If they are focused on a full-time USPS job, chances are they're not going to be sending enough properties for you to build predictable business out of it, is what I would say. And so still incentivize them. Maybe there's a cost per lead model where a postal person, you'd be like, hey, I'll give you $5 per lead. I would never pay $5 per lead if I was doing that on a general person. But if it's someone hey, you just happen to be in the field, flag me and I'll pay you $5. Or maybe even if I get a deal, you'll do a back end deal there, because they're already they're focused on their normal job. So I don't want it to be someone who's just doing this passively while they're doing something else as their priority. I want people to prioritize it, which is why I like the hourly route so much. But like you said, as an investor in general, always to make it easy for someone like that to send you a lead if they're going to see it. And those postal people too, they're going to come across opportunities. Like they're going to see those mailboxes not being picked up before vacant data comes in. They're going to see things that before other people see them very regularly. So definitely focus on them, but try to get an hourly person in as well because of the predictability that they'll have. Whereas again, a postal person, like those types won't be as focused on it.
Yeah. Well, one funny pro tip there around how to find those people is if you do, like Josh said, there's no reason not to at least ask people about that. We've actually seen, I've had a couple people mention the idea of leaving a flyer on your door, just because you get so many deliveries now, like from, it could be like Instacart to DoorDash to whatever it might be, that if you just leave a flyer on your door for people who are driving anyway, they might see that, take that, get in touch with you. We've had people actually recruit drivers that way too. So just a little thing not go out too far out of your way to do.
Oh, that's a good idea.
We know that data is gold nowadays. We're all trying to scramble for data, right? And so the best thing about driving for dollars is this is the freshest data we can get, right, before it goes to that other companies who kind of aggregate it to us. But within Deal Machine, are you guys going to actually, our lists that we get, you guys actually skip tracing that list, getting us back the homeowner's address and stuff, and then that information is given back to us, or we have to use a third party for that?
Yeah, so as soon as you add a property that you're driving, or if you have a list, if you upload any list to us, we will instantly append it with all the ownership data we have on it for the tax record data. So who the owner is, their mailing address, any county level data about the property is all there, exists right away. And then you can skip trace them individually on the spot. That ranges from 15 cents for enterprise members up to, I think, a quarter for our freemium model people. And we also do corporate skip tracing, which is 2 times the cost, but we'll hunt down an LLC or a trust or someone like that and find contact info for those types of people as well. So all that's doable in Deal Machine. If you're the actual full account holder out there in the field, you can do that as soon as you see the house. You can have their info from the driveway, or you can, if you have a team out there driving, you can then aggregate the data, log in on your computer, go to your leads view and view that and do it in bulk or one by one and manage that data however makes the most sense for you.
The guys that are doing serious numbers with Deal Machine, what are some of the common characteristics? Do you see them with X amount of drivers on their team? Like, what are some of these cheat sheet points that you can share with us that people can kind of say, well, if that's working for them, I can kind of model my plan accordingly?
Yep. When people add 2,000 properties a month into Deal Machine, we see them successful like 90% of the time, 95% of the time, because they're putting in enough new leads routinely to create those opportunities for them and their team members to close and put through their marketing cycle. So that combined with an actual marketing process that is repetitive over time, whether that's direct mail, whether that's SMS or cold calling, all of them work. It's just they're committed to it and they have a process in place to make it happen. So 2,000 leads a month is the most, because when you go to 2,002 right away, it gives you like a boost right away. It's like, oh, I've got a good volume of opportunities I'm putting in right there in months 1 and 2. And so you get a lot of initial opportunities, which we all know, like when we get early wins in anything, we want to repeat that. And so when you really go like all out early on, you get some initial results, and the lagging results are all there too, like 3, 4, 5 months down the road, but getting those initial wins are big. And so getting to the point you're getting 2,000 plus properties a month routinely in there, I think is a really big threshold for people. That's not, I mean, we've got people who add 500 a month on our basic plans and they're also successful. But I think that's like if I'm just giving like a specific threshold where we see like permanent client retention, where we see high performance, high multiple 3+ deals a month every month, that's a threshold to keep in mind. I think the only other thing I would say would just be the repetition of the marketing. Even if it's a lower amount, if they're adding 200-300 a month, just they're repeating the marketing routinely over and over again.
Yeah, can you kind of break down? I was gonna get into that point. First of all, like, I upload 10 properties a day, and I want to send them out for direct mail postcard campaigns. Like, how soon does that happen? Like, what's the turnaround time of those going out to the sellers? And also, like, what are the campaigns that we're building as far as the automation, the follow up? How, what type of campaigns are we doing inside the app to follow up with sellers?
So the quick version, it's all customizable. Generally, we recommend 30 to 45 days between mailers, potentially a faster repeat the first two, like day 1, day 15, and then day 45, and every 30 from there on out. When you add a property, like there's a secondary button. You can automatically send it as soon as you add a property. I generally don't recommend that because it creates too many potential headaches. I've seen them, trust me. I've seen accidental mailers sent way too much. But the day that you approve it, so you add the property and you hit approve for mail, or you can do that in bulk too. It's gonna hit the mailbox most likely that evening, if not the next day, and it's gonna be sent to that property owner. 5 to 7 day delivery time frame on average is what we see, and so, I mean, that's what that process looks like. And then again, you build in your automatic repeat cycles however you want to. I like 30. It also helps with budgeting to do every 30 days because you can just predictably know one mailer a month per property. For our enterprise members who do like more complex long-term campaigns, like I said, I might do like day 1 a ballpoint pen letter, day 15 a postcard, day 45 another postcard, and then over 2 years I might do 12 touch points that get a little bit more higher intervals over time. And so those are the types of campaigns I would typically put in place. But to stay simple too, basic user, jump in, repeat a postcard every 30 days, a total of 6 times. As soon as you add the property, hit start, and you don't think about that property until it's done.
Mm-hmm. I will say too, like if you're out driving, like you definitely I'd recommend adding the property and then approving it later. Like Josh said, and not send any accidental mailers. But if you're out driving too, like you can't skip trace on the spot and call people if you like the cold call route. So we've had plenty of people who are, when they're out on the route, they're calling right there, and especially if they're first getting started, like if they don't have 2,000 leads as a threshold or anything, they're being able to actually try to get in touch with that person and skip trace and call right on the spot. Definitely recommend that. And then even outside of that, like we've seen people, if you're a beginner, like starting with just going after absentee owners, just because that's just another barrier to not get over. Like if someone's living in that house, they're gonna have to obviously move, or if they're gonna sell the property. So starting with absentee owner and just like kind of going after that lowest hanging fruit, which whenever you take a picture of the prop, or whenever you mark a property in the Deal Machine app, you'll be able to see if it's absentee owner or not. So if you're a beginner, I'd say start there, skip tracing, cold calling, sending mailers like that. Even on your mailers, like doing small things like, we give you the option to add a picture of, within your signature of you, and maybe do that with, other family members or a pet, or, other things that are going to make you more relatable and give you a higher chance of getting a response rate. So start kind of, doing these things to build a solid foundation and start to get deal flow. And like Josh said, when you get your first win, it's exciting, and it gives you a chance to start to build momentum and want to do things like hiring a driving team and scaling and doing it at a higher volume.
Yeah, one thing I'd clarify too, we have a highlighting feature which will actually show you ownership information on the map before you add it. So you could actually just preemptively highlight for yourself and your deal finders, highlight every absentee owner on the map. So I know if I'm going to look at a property, I know first highlighted green, that means it's an absentee owner. So that could be an initial layer where maybe you look more closely at those properties, or maybe if you want to stay more niche and focus as small and narrow as possible, you say absentee owners that sold over 10 years ago, and then you only focus on those. And so really good beginner tip there. The easiest way for me to explain it. So the more narrow you look, there's going to be a smaller pool of properties to market to, but your cost per acquisition is probably a little bit lower, and you're going to get like the properties with the best chance of multiple innovations, like absentee owner sold over 10 years ago, it's distressed property. Those are things that indicate to us there could be a good transaction there. Now, if you're scaling up big, I recommend against going too niche, because some of the best opportunities you're going to find driving are going to be distressed properties that are owner occupied, because other investors don't market to them at all. They don't even touch the property. And so I don't like scaling with that narrow of a niche. I like focusing on distress no matter what. But if your goal, like if you're just starting out and you're like, I got $100 a month, I got $50 a month. All right, like we can't go too large in this list. Like we got to stay focused. And so if you need to stay more narrow, you need to focus on that acquisition cost. You could use those kind of extra criteria to really focus your driving in on like specific unique opportunities to focus on, to spend less and get a lower acquisition cost early on.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Let me ask you guys a question. Can I upload a list if I have a certain hit list that I want to focus on? And then I figure if these areas are hot and I upload my list, I might find other deals around there too.
You can upload any list to Deal Machine. Even if you just have the addresses, we'll append it with all the ownership data and transaction data that we have about those properties instantly. So those also don't go against your monthly limit of leads that you can add to Deal Machine if you're upgrading it from your list. It's just the street leads added from actually driving. The downstream of what you just mentioned, we are in the process of building and releasing, and it's probably the next bigger feature that we're launching is our route planning tools. So not just reactionary looking at where you or your drivers have been, but actually saying, hey, I want to tell myself I need to go drive this zip code today or this neighborhood, and I want to make sure I hit every single street. We'll build the route for you to go do that. Or if you need to assign it to a driver and say, hey, this week I'm willing to, again, let's follow the 1099 structure. This week I'm willing to pay someone who wants to go drive this spot and do X, Y, Z. And you can actually build the route and then track when they've actually gone and do it. And so that's a feature that we're coming out with soon when we talk about scaling this up to predictably driving your market, knowing when it will be redriven, when it is being assigned to somebody is another really big thing.
Cool. Yeah, I was going to ask about that too. You know, a lot of times we talk about how reverse engineering it, where, you know, find buyers and where they're looking for deals at, right? Then go find a deal in that area. So lots of times that could be very like an actual neighborhood of streets, you know? So that's a good feature to have where I can say, hey, I know I have a buyer looking for a house right here. I'm going to have somebody drive this neighborhood and look and see what's out there. Exactly.
Yeah. I think it's a huge next thing. So the biggest shifts I feel like we've had from a new product launch perspective, we didn't have a map mode at all. So when we launched map mode, that was a big upgrade to where you could see the properties you've already added in the area. The next upgrade was route tracking. So you could see where you physically have been on the actual route on the map. And I think the next really big level up, and there's been little updates along the way for other stuff too. Map highlighting was one of them. I think was really cool. But this next one of route planning, like for our customers who are like, I'm like going all out, I'm committing to making this a really effective big channel for me. That's going to be a game changer for people to predictably build the whole system around it. Reverse engineer, like I said, prioritize areas, reverse engineer it, and execute.
That's super strong. It reminds me of back in the day when I first graduated from high school, and then I'm dating myself, right? It was you're looking for jobs in the classifieds. There was no internet, there was no Indeed or any of that. So I don't know if you guys remember, but there used to be ads that would say, come work for a marketing agency. We represent all the big sports teams in the industry. And then you show up and there's like 30 people there and they give you the rah-rah speech and they're like, we're going to put you with our top producers and you guys are going to hit the field and visit our most VIP clients. And you guys are going to see how you're going to be able to make money and you can make $1,000 a week and blah, blah, blah. You're 18 years old going to college and you're like $1,000 a week. I'm in. Let's do it. And then you jump in a car with some dude. And
go hours away.
And they have their routes. They have their plan. They already have their strategy. And what you're really doing is going door to door, selling coloring books, pots and pans, and whatever it is. But those agencies and those things have huge sales forces and they got their SOPs down and they got their plans and their routes and they edit daily and they're doing serious numbers selling, gadgets and trinkets and no big thing. As you're telling me about these new features, I'm sitting here like trying to resist the entrepreneurship mind of like, I'm gonna now build a department and we're gonna go and do the route and like we're gonna make this crazy and we're gonna have 50 drivers going out a week. Because as you say, the number 2,000 as the magic number, I start to reverse engineer that as 66 properties, 66 to 67 properties a day in a 30-day month. If you can add, let's say 20 properties, 25 properties an hour, that's 3 hours a day if you're doing a daily, which can easily be done by one driver, even if you break it up into two. And if I can start in the planning their routes and mapping it out and getting the data and getting it specific, lowering the acquisition cost. I mean, things can get crazy. It could get really serious. That's a whole. I'm very tempted. I'm very tempted, guys.
I like to hear it. Let me know how I can help.
That's awesome. I love the features. I love everything you guys are sharing with us. We have so many people that blow us up in our DMs and in our comments when they listen to the show, and they're hungry to get started, but they're limited on budget. And I just feel like this is stage one, step one in getting in the game.
It is. It definitely is. We always tell people, hey, first thing you want to do, go drive for dollars, right? When they ask, what should I do right now? I don't have much money. Don't go buy a bunch of direct mail. Don't go buy a big list. Go drive for dollars. Get a fresh, real list of homes that you know are distressed and vacant, and then hit that list.
And more importantly, if you want to partner with people that are doing multiple deals a month and you want to come and add value to them, take what we're talking about right now. Take the initiative and sign up for Deal Machine on their behalf and say, hey, I will come and I will set up your driving for dollars department for your team. Let me be the guy. And then let me find different recruits for you. And let us be your boots on the ground. And Jay, tell us it's not true. We never have anybody approach us that way. Because if they did, it'd be a whole different conversation.
No, we definitely don't. Nope. Mm-hmm. Nope. But hey, we have so much time wrapped up in other stuff that I would be like in a heartbeat. Hey, go ahead. Run with it. Let's see how it goes.
That is probably the biggest takeaway from everything that you guys are telling me. If you guys want to get in the game, if you want to partner with heavy hitters, these are the things that you don't need a ton of money, that you can easily bring value. You can partner with the investors in your market that are buying and doing deals. This is a done-for-you blueprint with high-level technology that is not going to break the bank, that you can easily get into the real estate game in 10 minutes.
Yep. 100% agree.
Yeah.
I love it, guys. We appreciate the time that you guys have given us. I appreciate the little tease on the big feature that's coming up. I know you graced us and hooked us up so that our people that watch the show and our group can get a free trial and some free marketing credits with the link that I'm putting up right now on the screen. For those of you listening on the audio, you can go to dealmachine.app.link/shut-INV, shut-INV as in invest. I appreciate your guys' time. This was awesome. Jay, you got anything before we go?
No, once again, thanks guys for coming on. I think Driving for Dollars is a huge, marketing tool that everybody should use, especially when you're starting off. And if you're doing a lot of deals, like we said before, you don't have time to do it. The features you guys are bringing as far as the driving teams and stuff can help out a big team in a really big way at a very low cost, right? So, keep innovating, keep changing the game, keep doing what you guys are doing.
And Josh and Matt, I know you guys mentioned you guys have a lot of training and platforms. Where do you recommend people get more in-depth training on this? Is there a certain platform, social media, that they can get more good education on?
The best Deal Machine resources we have are definitely our YouTube channel. We have basically 2 or 3 full-time people that all they do is that channel. And so there's a lot of content on there, from tutorial content to like the stuff I mentioned with David, like here's how to hire a driver team. Like half that's tutorial, half that's like processes. And so we've got a lot of stuff like that we're constantly releasing there. And so there's a lot of really good resourceful content there. We also have a Facebook community group, just called the Deal Machine Community Group, that you guys can join and get tips from people and stuff like that too.
Yeah. And then if anyone has specific questions too, just matt@dealmachine.com. Feel free to reach out to me. Use me as a resource as well. And thanks again for having us on, guys. We're excited.
You guys have been awesome. We appreciate you guys coming on the show. And as always, shut up and invest.